What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday evening. And look, I get it. I know. We're all thinking about the Seahawks right now. We're all getting hyped for this season. We're a week away from week one. I get that. But I said I was going to make some Mariners videos this year, which is something that I haven't done a good job of keeping up with in previous seasons. So here it is. I know everybody's chomping at the bit to talk about the Seahawks right now, but today the Mariners played their 40th game. They are two-thirds of the way through this shortened season, so gonna make a video about what I see, about the progression that these players are making, about where this team is headed. I said I was gonna do it, so I'm gonna do it. So, 40 games in, two-thirds of the way through, like I said. I said last time I checked in, which was over 3 weeks ago, that the Mariners should just tank. We were in line for a top five pick. I think we were picking fourth at that point, and it looked like we were just going to be a bad team. So I figured as long as we're going to be bad, we should be really bad, of course. Like, why not have one more top 10 or top five pick before you actually start competing for something? But nobody told the team, and the team has been good in the last 20 games, and they've been great in the last 15. The last 20 games the Mariners have played since I last made a video, they have gone 11-9, including 11-4 in the last 15. They lost their first 5 games after my last video, and I thought, okay, everything's going according to plan. No, not everything's going according to plan. They reeled off 11 wins in 15 games, including a few against the Padres and I think 2 wins against the Dodgers, two teams that are pretty good out there in the National League. So the team is just playing good, and it's not even really coming from the offense. It is some way, somehow coming from this pitching staff. So I'm going to run down the things that I saw over the last 20 games, compare them to the first 20 games, and we'll see where things are headed. So we're going to start with the offense because the offense was the side of the ball that I assumed was going to carry this team to success if we were going to have any this year. And they're not playing terrible, but with one exception, we have seen drop offs from most of our players. We're going to start with, of course, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Kyle Lewis. He's certainly, as of right now, until we see something from Jared Klenick, hopefully next year, he is the guy who we expect to be the face of the franchise going forward. He's had 20 hits in the last 20 games. He had 25 in the first 20, but he has maintained his overall performance because his strikeouts are down. He had 23 strikeouts in the first 20 games compared to 19 in the last 20. So his strikeouts went down a little bit and his walks went up. 9 in the first 20 games, and he got on base via a walk or a hit by pitch 12 times in the last 20 games. So he's striking out a little less and he's walking a little bit more to make up for the fact that he's not hitting as much. His average did drop to 315. He was up near 340 last time we checked in. And his OPS did drop as well, but only by 0.003 points. His OPS was 0.920. Now it's 0.917. So he's still the same effectiveness in terms of an overall offensive player. His on base percentage dropped a few points from 414 to 400, but he's making up for it in other ways. And overall, his effectiveness as an offensive player is still there. Now, defensively, look, all this stuff is small sample size. It goes for offense, but it goes especially for defense. I'm not going to make wide assumptions about these players based off a 60-game season, and I'm certainly not going to do it off 20-game or 40-game sample sizes either, but Kyle Lewis so far this year, according to every defensive metric I can find, is playing below average center field. He has -5 fielding runs, -1 runs saved, and his UZR score is -3.2. So there's reason to believe Kyle Lewis has some stuff to clean up a little bit in the field. We know the talent is there for him to be a good center fielder. So far, according to the metrics, we haven't really seen it yet. However, Kyle Lewis continues to play about as well as he did to start the season, and I certainly wouldn't trade him for anybody right now. Okay, the next key piece of this Mariners team going forward, the Yankees had the core four. I kind of imagine these first four players I'm going to talk about as being the core four unless Clinic comes and is everything we expect him to be. But we'll get to Clinic when he gets called up. But Dylan Moore. He got hurt. He missed half the games, which was unfortunate because he was on a roll. He was stealing bases. He was hitting for average. He was hitting for a little bit of power. So he only played 10 games in the last 20. He had 10 hits, so he kept up the hitting, 9 strikeouts, and 4 walks total, which basically overall was a slight drop off from the first 20 games. The first 20 games he had 15 hits, but he also struck out 17 times, so he did clean up a little bit there. He's not striking out as much. His walks are down a little bit as well. He walked 7 times, but a lot of that can just be attributed to the fact that he got hurt and missed half the games. Honestly, when he came back, he was close to as effective as he was in the first 20 games. His average dropped to 7 points from 294 to 287. His ops dropped about 100 points or 90 points. His on-base percentage dropped 10, 12 points, I think. So basically a very similar player. Fielding, again, take these fielding stats with a grain of salt. He seems solid in the outfield. His UZR is 1.8 in the outfield so far. He's got 2 runs saved and 1 fielding run above average. He's pretty average in the infield. His overall UZR score, if you take a look at all the times he played in the infield this year, is negative 0.1. So it's totally fine. Definitely seems like he's going to be a key piece going forward, which is not something I expected. So that's a wonderful, wonderful surprise. Next guy I want to talk about here is Evan White. And he was a dude who was at the bottom, rock bottom, last time I made a video. His batting average after 20 games was 104. It was deep below the Mendoza line. So he got hurt and missed 5 games. Evan White, I think he injured his shoulder and missed 5 games. But in the 15 games he did play, we saw 13 hits, I believe 4 home runs, 19 strikeouts, which is still a lot, but it's a big improvement over the 31 he had in the first batch of games. And he walked 6 times compared to 5 in the first 20 games. So he doubled his hit count basically in the middle 20 games of the season, despite missing 5 games. And he hit for power. He had a couple doubles as well. He played really well. His average went up over the course of 15 games played from 104 to 175. His OPS went up from 343 to 606. His on-base percentage went up from 164 to 246. So he's got a lot of work to do if he actually wants to have decent numbers this season, but I think his OPS plus is now up above 60 I think it's up above 70 now. So he's headed in the right direction. And over his last 15 games, the last 15 games he's played, so every game he played in this middle 20, his average is 277, which is solid, and his ops is 976, which is stellar. That's actually better than Kyle Lewis's. So we're headed in the right direction. He continues to be very good in the field, maybe not great yet. BB gives him 2 fielding runs above average and 3 runs saved above average for first baseman, and his UZR score is positive 0.5. So by all fielding metrics I can find, he's good to very good in the field. And the final key piece that I want to discuss here, J.P. Crawford. What did we see from him in this second stretch of the season? He dropped off a little bit at the plate. He had 14 hits and 20 strikeouts compared to 21 hits and 9 strikeouts in the first 20 games. He did, however, walk more. He had 8 total walks or hit by pitches in the last 20 games compared to just 1 in the first 20. So he hit less and struck out more, and he didn't totally make up for it by walking more, but it did help to mitigate that slightly. His average dropped almost 50 points, actually more than 50 points. So he definitely struggled to get on base compared to how he was doing at the start of the season. His ops dropped almost 90 points, and his on-base percentage dropped from 40.5 to basically 34. So we saw significant decreases from his production at the plate, although we did see a little bit of power from him, which is kind of nice. His defense continues to be excellent by all metrics I can find, however. He's got 5 fielding runs above average and 4 runs saved above average, according to BBRef, and a 1.3 UZR. He looks like he's going to be an average bat at shortstop, who is a great defensive player, which is probably good enough as long as we're getting great production out of players like Kyle Lewis, Evan White, and eventually Jared Klinick and perhaps Mitch Haniger. Last interesting piece that I want to talk about at length here would be Tim Lopes, because he started the season really well, and for a little bit there, it looked like we really might have a surprisingly key player going forward. But in the last 20 games, he struggled a little bit, and he actually got sent down. He's no longer with the club. He's with a AAA club. So 15 games in the last 20, and then he got sent down. He had 11 hits in those 15 games, which is not terrible. 11 strikeouts, not great, but not terrible either. And he got on base for free twice. Compare that to 13 hits, 12 strikeouts, and 4 base on balls in the first 20. So he didn't drop off terribly, but we definitely saw some of the warts, and we saw why he wasn't a highly thought of prospect. His average dropped from 255 to 240. Ops dropped from 700 to 263. His on-base percentage dropped about 25%. So he's looking a little more ordinary right now, but I'm not giving up on him, and I don't think this team is either. At worst, he seems like a decent utility player because he does have a little bit of flexibility in the field. He's not great in the field. According to UZR, he's slightly below average, and in fielding runs, he's also slightly below average. But I have my eye on him going forward. I could see us calling him back up at some point and seeing what he has. It was definitely a humbling stretch of games for him, but even then, he didn't play terrible. So I have my eye on Tim Lopes. So that gets us through the 5 main players on offense. As you can see, with the exception of Evan White, everybody fell off a little bit, which is why the offense as a whole fell off a little bit, which is why it's kind of crazy that we kept winning games. So quick notes on the offense before I move to the pitching. I want to get everything out in this video because I'm not going to be making a lot of Mariners videos this year. This is probably the last one until the end of the season unless we get into the playoff race. But Shed Long, we didn't see much good from him, to be perfectly honest. We didn't see a lot from him in the first 20 games. These last 20 were no different. He played 14 games and only had 6 hits, 15 strikeouts, 2 base on balls. He seems pretty abysmal at the plate so far. In the field, you can go either way on this one. He seems below average in terms of runs saved. He had -4 runs saved, according to BBRef, but his UZR score is positive at 0.7. So he might be an average to slightly above average defensive player, but his bat is so bad I don't think it matters. In some surprising good news, we might have some promising pieces for our bench going forward in Jose Marmolejos and Sam Haggerty. We saw a little bit from these guys in the past 20 games, and it was promising. Marmolejos played 9 games out of the last 20. Wow. Sorry, guys. Let me wet my whistle a little bit. Jose Marmolejos played in 9 games in the last 20. He pinch hit a little bit. He was a reserve for, I think he played a little bit of first base or third base. He was in the outfield a little bit. Interesting utility player. 10 hits in 9 games and 4 strikeouts compared to 4 walks. So he's also got great plate discipline so far. Very small sample size, but he did work at the plate. He had that grand slam early on. It seems like we might have something with Jose. In the field so far, he's been not great. -1 UZR in left field, -1 run saved. He seemed perfectly adequate at first base. Yeah, it was first base he played at. So, yeah, little something there maybe. It's a tiny sample size, but I have my eye on Marmolejos. And Sam Haggerty, kind of the same boat. We saw him in 13 games over the last 20. He had 13 hits, 16 strikeouts, which is quite a few, to 4 bases on balls. But he was raking a little bit, and again, I don't want to make any big assumptions about where he's going in his career, but he seems like he could be good depth, especially because in the outfield he actually had a pretty good defensive metrics. His UZR was about 1. The other big thing that happened in the last several days was the Austin Nola trade. We acquired Taylor Trammell, Luis Torrens, Ty France, and Andre Munoz. We also gave up, I believe, Taylor Williams and Dan Altavilla. I love the trade. I liked Nola. He was playing really well, but we don't really have a need for Austin Nola because next year we're going to have Murphy back. So I supported the trade 100%. He was playing really well. He deserves to play on a team that has a chance to contend. Early dividends on that trade. Ty France has already played a few games. He's played in this last series against the Rangers. He had 3 hits in 3 games, only struck out once. He also drew 3 walks, which is very significant over just 3 games. So far, so good for Ty France. Luis Torrens played the last few games as well. He's got 1 hit and he drew a walk. Nothing great, but very small sample size with all these guys, of course. So far, the trade is paying some minor early dividends. And final thing on the offense, I want to give credit where credit is due. Kyle Seager, he did fall off a good amount. Last 20 games had 17 hits, 13 strikeouts, and drew 13 total walks or hit by pitches, which is not as good as his first 20 games, 21 hits, 7 strikeouts, and 13 base on balls. So he did drop off a little bit. His average fell off about 10 points. His ops dropped 10 points. His OBP actually went up, though. So he's still finding ways to make key contributions. He's hitting for a little bit of power. He's hitting for average. It's really kind of a career year for him so far at the plate, which is crazy. I never thought in a million years this could happen. His fielding has gone to hell. He's got -5 fielding runs above average and -5 runs saved, and his UZR is below 1.3. So he's not good in the field anymore. I think we all kind of know that. But I want to give him credit because he's the one of the few veterans left on this team, maybe the only real veteran left on this team. And I don't know if he's going to be part of the future. I don't know if he's going to be part of the team next year even. I don't know if he's going to be part of the next good Mariners team, but with the way he's playing, he's making it believable that he could put together a decent season next year when he's, 30, almost 34 years old. So shout out to Kyle Seager. I just don't know if it means anything going forward when things actually matter. All right, so let's get to the pitching real quick because this is where we actually won games. It's the area of the team that I'm a little less interested in compared to the bats because I feel like the prospects are just not as compelling. But these last 20 games may just prove me wrong. So 15 of our last 20 games, we have, as a team, allowed 4 or fewer runs. We had quite a few games where we allowed 2 runs or less as well. It's just been a really good stretch of games for the pitching as a whole. We had a couple really bad games like to the Angels and the Astros. I think we had 2 bad games against the Dodgers, but the pitching has been great these last 20 games overall. To run down the list, so the main pitching prospect who I've been watching this year has been Justice Sheffield because to me he's the guy who is most likely going to be a ace or borderline ace at some point. He has made 4 starts in the last 20 games, and 3 of those starts went 6 or 7 innings and included a 1 or 2 earned run performance. So 3 of his last 4 starts were quality starts of at least 6 innings and 2 or fewer earned runs allowed. Last 4 starts total 23 and a 2/4 inning, or excuse me, 23.2 innings. So he's had the 1 bad start. The other 3 starts have been solid. He's had a couple starts that were downright stellar. He's given up 10 earned runs total across those 4 starts, 21 strikeouts, 7 walks, which is a little but we kind of knew he was going to have little control issues. ERA has dropped over his last 4 starts from 5.27 to 4.34. So his ERA has gone down almost 1 full run in the last 4 starts. And his ERA plus, which averages at 100, is now at 96 for the season. So he is this close to being a league average pitcher. And this is really his first full year up. So good stuff. Over the last 4 games, he has definitely been an above-average pitcher, so hopefully he can keep it up. Justin Dunn is the other key prospect I've been keeping my eye on. I don't like him as much as Sheffield, but I like him. He started today and pitched another really good game. He's had 4 starts in the last 20 games, just like Sheffield. 3 of those starts went for at least 6 innings. 2 of them, he pitched a shutout and had 6 strikeouts. The start today, he went 6 innings but gave up a couple runs. He had one bad start. He had the one bad start. Other than that, 3 quality starts out of 4, just like Sheffield. He's gone 20 innings total, 8 earned runs given up, 17 strikeouts, and 10 walks. His walks were actually doing really well before yesterday, or excuse me, today. Today, his walks blew up a little bit. He gave up 4 bases on balls, not good. But on the whole, you would say the last 4 starts have been very good for him. His ERA is down from 4.85 to 4.09. His ERA has dropped almost an eighth of a run. And his ERA plus, as of yesterday, was 97. I'm guessing when it updates, it's going to be about a 99 or 100. He's going to be right around the league average, so good for him. He obviously had some rough starts to start the season, as you would expect, so the fact that he's come around to this degree is very promising. I think both those guys are rotational starters for a good team at some point. Maybe they're number 3 starters or number 4 starters. Maybe one of them can be a number 2 starter. Maybe one of them can blow up to be a number 1 starter. I don't know if I see that, but I do see both those guys having positive futures in baseball, hopefully for the Mariners. Okay, now we have Marco, and Marco, I wasn't sure if he was going to be part of the future, but with the way he's been pitching this year, it looks like Marco Gonzalez may very well be a part of the rotation next year and the year after and the year after that because he is pitching great. He's had 3 starts in the last 20 games. I think he goes tomorrow, but I'm not sure. So in those 3 starts, every start had at least 5 innings, and every start had 3 earned runs or less. He had one complete game shutout, I believe. He had another start that was like 7 innings and 1 earned run. So he has been killing it the last 3 starts. He 2 of his last 3 starts went for at least 7 innings, and he only gave up 1 run in both those games. He also had 8 or 9 strikeouts in those 2 games. So the last 3 games, he's been killing it. 2 of those 3 games, he was super killing it. And overall, over the last 20 games, he's pitched 21 innings and given up 5 earned runs. Really remarkable. 22 strikeouts and 1 walk. Incredible control. I'll say it again. 22 strikeouts in 21 innings and 1 walk. His ERA dropped from just under 4 to just over 3. His ERA dropped nearly a full run in just 3 starts, and his ERA plus 135. That's one of the better marks you'll find in the whole league. He is killing it. And if Marco wants to be the number 3 or number 2 starter next year, with the way he's pitching so far this year, sign me up for that. Next guy is a guy that I'm pretty down on. I'm not super optimistic about where he's going, but he's the other main starter in this rotation right now, and he is young enough to where it's possible he's part of the future. So you see Kikuchi has made 3 starts in the last 20 games, and he's actually done okay. 2 of those 3 starts went for 5 or 6 innings, and he gave up 3 or fewer earned runs. So 2 of those starts were at least decent, if not good. He had 1 start where he went 6 innings and gave up 1 run while striking out 7. Over the last 3 starts combined, he's had 15.2 innings, 9 earned runs, 18 strikeouts, and 4 walks. So decent, not exciting. His ERA plus is still around 80 something, but he's been in control. He's not been walking players, and he's actually had a couple good starts. So his ERA down from 5.28 to 5.23. So that one bad start he had really killed him, but I cannot ignore the fact that he looks like somebody who could at the very least be like a 6th starter, an emergency starter or something like that. That's kind of what I think he is right now. Maybe he can become a number 5 if he keeps up some of the good stuff. Final starter, Nick Margevicius, who started the season in the bullpen and was actually pitching quite well in the bullpen. So we decided to give him some starts in the last 20 games. He's had 3 starts, and he's done okay. All 3 starts, he went at least 5 innings plus an out. He had 2 starts where he went at least 6 innings and gave up 2 earned runs. And in the one bad start, he went 5.1 innings and went and gave up 4 runs. So you can't really say that any of those starts are all that bad. They are all giving your team a chance to at least be in the game. So 3 starts, 17 and an extra out innings, 8 earned runs allowed, 15 strikeouts, and 3 walks. So that's better than Kikuchi by a little bit. And I even gave Kikuchi a little bit of credit for being okay. But Marge Vicious, ever since he took over as a starter, has been a little bit better. His ERA actually jumped because he was pitching really well in the bullpen, but still up to about 3.86, which is moderately fine. His ERA plus is now 109, which solid, above average, considerably above average, and that's the starters. With what I'm seeing right now, I think there's a chance we only need to add one ace to make this a true rotation that is ready to win a lot of games. Sheffield and Dunn could both be number twos or number threes. Marco Gonzalez could be a number two or a number three as well. And Marjavicius and Kikuchi both look like fringe five guys to me right now. But again, small sample sizes. We need to see a lot more from some of these guys, especially somebody like Marge Vicious, who just started starting games for us. But so far, I think this is promising. And maybe the most interesting thing about this team, and I'm going to go over this real quick here, is the bullpen. The bullpen, outside of one guy who I'm going to mention in a second here, has been really good over the past several games, which is why we've been winning a lot of games. There are 3 guys who have been pitching really well over the past 20 games out of the pen. We have Anthony Mizowiz, and I'm going to give him a shout out here. I think he's probably been our best, or, well, probably our most utilized bullpen pitcher lately. Anthony Mizowiz, Missy Wiz, Mizey Wise. We'll go with that. He's made 7 appearances in 20 games. He's gone 8 total innings and given up 7 total hits, which is not great, but only 2 runs, only the 2 runs. He's got 8 strikeouts and 1 walk. His ERA has dropped a lot from where the season started. Started this 20-game stretch at 5.40. Now he's at 3.68, so he's improved drastically, and he is now well above average in ERA plus, 110. The other key piece over the last several games has been Joey Gerber. He's made 6 appearances out of the bullpen and gone 5.2 innings, only given up 4 hits, 0 earned runs, the big money number right there, 3 strikeouts and no walks. He's had great control, and that's a big deal for somebody who's sucked out loud over the first 20 games. His ERA after the first 20 games was 8.31. Now it's 3.6. That is a huge turnaround. His ERA plus is now 119. Again, smallish sample sizes to be sure, but these are promising signs to me. Final guy out of the bullpen, Johan Ramirez, kind of a newer face. I didn't see a lot of him early on, but he made 5 appearances in the last 20 games and went a total of 7 innings. He had 1 long relief appearance, 3 innings, 2 hits. 2 hits in 7 innings, 2 earned runs, which kind of looks unlucky given that he only gave up 2 runs, but some of it is because he had minor control issues. He had 10 strikeouts compared to 6 walks, which is not a good ratio, but definitely some interesting promise over there. Hopefully he can get his walks under control. His ERA dropped from 3.86 to 3.21, and his ERA plus is now 132. Well above average. If he can keep that up over the course of a season, or even a little bit less than that, that's pretty elite. And the only bullpen arm that noticeably struggled over the last 20 games, in my estimation, is Matt McGill. He made 4 appearances and got lit up, and then he went on IL, the injured list. So that's probably a big reason why he was struggling. He was not well. He's the guy who did a lot of work in blowing that one game against the Padres, where we gave up like 7 runs in 1 out, or with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th. He made 4 appearances and gave up like, I can't remember, 11 or 12 runs total. It was some ridiculously high number. And then he went on the injured list. He did give up 0 earned runs over his first 7 innings in the first 20 games. So I don't know what to make of Matt McGill. I don't know if he's part of the future or not, but those first 20 games would tell me that, hey, we have something. The last 4, maybe he was playing hurt. I don't know, but did not pitch well. So that is the Mariners after 40 games. I broke down the first the most recent 20 games for you, and I looked at the overall picture. The offense, It's coming along. These guys are still playing well. They're just not lighting it up as much as they did to start the season. The pitching, however, which is the side of the ball that I was not expecting a ton from this year, has improved dramatically. And I will be keeping a close eye on it over the next 20 games to wrap up the season. Let's go for the playoffs at this point because we're not getting a top 2 pick, that's for sure. Peace out, go M's, and see you guys in